Hey, this is Mike McAdam from Gen X Guitar. Today we're going to talk about how Jimmy Page uses the EP3 Echoplex to make cool noises. So if you aren't familiar with an Echoplex, it's basically a primitive delay that they started making, I believe, in the 60s. This model is from 1973. It's a Maestro EP3 Echoplex. I was lucky enough to find this at Guitar Center about 10 years ago. It was sitting in the accessories area behind the counter. The guy didn't even know what it was. I said, "What is that?" And he's like, "I don't know." It was $400, so I grabbed it. And these things are a blast if you've never had one. They are like any sort of old item you picked up. They're quirky. They have their flaws, but this thing really sounds awesome. Like if you're just playing straight guitar through it and you want that little famous Echoplex preamp boost and a really gorgeous delay that you can add a little modulation to, this will definitely do the job. So I'm glad I picked it up. It's got tons of vibe, tons of color. But today we're going to talk about how Jimmy Page uses this in his sonic arsenal. So I'm going to take you under the hood of this a little bit and show you a little bit of how it works. So this runs on an actual tape, which is cool because you could see it running through the spool, etc. Full Tone makes a newer version of this, which is great. I had that. I guess they, at the time, would only sell replacement tapes if you owned one of their Echoplexes. I did, so I was able to get a new one for this. But yeah, you can control the amount of delay with this lever here. It speeds the tape or slows the tape down. And then you have your input and output here. There's an echo off button if you want to bypass it. And then you can also do the sound on sound feature where you can do loops and layer things on top of each other. We're not going to get into that today. Like I said, it's a cool little device. It smells exactly like your basement, so you can get an idea what that is. But it's definitely a quirky, cool, old piece of gear. But when it works, it sounds phenomenal. So the first way that Page would use this is simply as a preamp. So a lot of people use the EP3 just because it enhanced your sound. It's sort of difficult to describe, but it saturates the sound a little bit, especially on the full Echoplex. I hear a little bit of modulation in there. My bypass looper is not working correctly, so you cannot hear the before and after. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. It also changes the feel of the guitar a little bit. So there are a ton of companies now, Catlin Bread, Chase, Dunlop, that are making Echoplex pre-pedals that just simulate this circuit. But I love this type of circuit. I think it's really cool. If you check out my pedal board video pinned above, you can hear more about how this works. But I'm going to play a little bit with just the dry tone with just the preamp of the Echoplex. It's going to sound like this. So that preamp definitely makes things sound a little bit juicier. So it's definitely a cool sonic addition to the sound. Number two, Page used this as just a short delay. It was more a slapback type of delay. And you hear this in a lot of places, especially live. I'm going to demonstrate that right now, and it's going to sound like this. So one of the many cute quirks about the Echoplex is you literally heard it wind down while I was playing because it basically quit on me. So let's try that again. It's going to sound like this, and hopefully it works this time. Okay, it made it past the finish line. So before this thing explodes, let's see if we can get on to the third example. So the next way that Jimmy Page used the Echoplex is when he used the Violin Bow. So definitely adding the long echo in there gives everything, you know, a creepier, murkier sound. He also does that thing where he taps the guitar in time. So there's a way to set up the Echoplex for that. I'm going to do this example standing up so you can see it in all its glory. So here we go. Let's try this. So the fourth way he uses this Echoplex is with his Thermin. So if you've seen The Song Remains the Same movie, there's that great kind of split screen iconic thing where he's got one hand on the Echoplex and one hand on the Thermin. We're going to duplicate that right now. I have this, it's called a Zepp Thermin that I purchased on Amazon, and that's a ton of fun also. You can keep yourself up for days screwing around with this thing. And it sounds like this. So like Jimmy Page, I'm not really playing the Thermin. You can actually play pitches on the Thermin by manipulating your hand and getting actual notes out of it. That's not how Jimmy Page used it, and that's not how we're going to use it. The thing that's interesting about it is with my left hand, I'm kind of controlling whatever noise I want to get out of the Thermin, and with the right hand, I'm using the Echoplex where I'm varying the delay time on the Echoplex, which is a cool function. If you've ever heard Tommy Bolin, he did this pretty extensively where he would play and manipulate the Echoplex in real time and use it as a live effect. Obviously, a lot of analog delays will do this as well, but the Echoplex I find has more power over this. Santana used this a lot also, but it's a neat little feature in this box that Page would use in that spot and a whole lot of love. Anyway, I hope you found this entertaining. Anytime I get to mess around with a Violin Bow and a Thermin on a video, it's always going to be a good time. And if you don't have anything to do this weekend, pick one of them up for yourself and entertain yourself for hours. It's probably a cheap way to do so. Anyway, if you enjoyed this content, please comment, like, subscribe, do all the stuff you do on YouTube besides leave horrible comments. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching Gen X Guitar.